Welcome to the DC Bar Community's Law Student Podcast with your hosts, Sienna Hurd, 3L at American University, Washington College of Law,
Elena Hoffman, 3L at the George Washington University Law School,
and Delali Dagadu, 4L at UDC David Ed Clark School of Law. You're listening to Let's Brief It.
Hello and welcome back to Let's Brief It. Everyone loves a good hotel stay, whether you're on vacation in a new and exotic place, or if you're near home and simply need to get away from your normal routine. When most people think of hotels and hospitality, they normally think about pools, restaurants, and spas. But for today's guests, hospitality and tourism also has an intrinsic connection to the law. In today's episode, we'll be taking a step into the world of hospitality law with our guest, Professor Stephen Shapiro.
Professor Shapiro is the director of the Hospitality and Tourism Law program at American University, Washington College of Law. He currently teaches, writes, and speaks on topics in complex hospitality issues and construction law at the law school, blending his career in law firm practice, construction engineering, and academics. Professor Shapiro earned his undergraduate business administration degree from Georgetown University, his law degree from Georgetown University, and his master's of law degree from Georgetown University. Later, he received a master's degree in engineering from the University of Maryland. So Professor Shapiro, it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us. Would you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of hospitality law?
Great. Elena and Sienna, thanks so much for having me. You mentioned my work at Georgetown, which seems like a lot hearing you say it. I graduated, I clerked for a judge, and then I spent 12 years in the practice of law, very much traditional mid-sized firms, boutique firms. And it was fine. I was never a lawyer who disliked law, but at the same time, I never quite thrived in law, just didn't quite get it. So I was just marching along. And over a period of years, I started asking questions about design and construction and kept asking questions for 2 or 3 years until finally a friend, a colleague, said, "You're kind of making me crazy. Why don't you take a class on construction and design and see if you like it?" So Sienna, you mentioned that I later got an engineering degree. So at age 39, took a class at night at University of Maryland in engineering. And after my first or second class, I went to my friend and he asked me how it was. And I said it was great. I kind of liked it. He said, "Now go get a job in construction." And of course, these stories could take up way more than our time. I will shorten them to say that I left law at age 39. I left law and went to a construction company. And many people think that I went to practice construction law, but in fact, I was in the trailer. So starting over again in the trailer, going to school at night. I spent 3.5 years of night school with a supportive wife and young children, and eventually got my master's in civil engineering 3.5 years later, as I mentioned. Stayed in general contracting, and I don't really believe in chase your passion, or if you chase your passion, the doors will open. Having said that, I've been the recipient of some really good fortune in that time. And it has been very much a non-traditional career, but a rewarding career, and hard to imagine life anywhere else. After graduating, I thought the school was missing a class doesn't even matter, but a class in real estate development for the construction manager, and proposed it. They liked the idea. I started teaching it. Then I started teaching construction management for the real estate developer. And then after about 5 years of teaching those, made my move from University of Maryland, where I was teaching, to American, where I know, Sienna, you're a student now. I don't know if there's a point to all this, but to explore ideas, to take measure of what I think I'm good at, or you as a listener think that you're good at. It's not necessarily passion, perhaps, but aptitude, directions, what's possible.
Thank you. That was a great introduction to your history and your past.
Your experience is really, really interesting and impressive. How have you found that your master's in engineering assists in what you do now in your practice?
Yeah, I think it's hard to, of course, stop and say, where is this, whatever this is from? Is it from practice of law? Is it from engineering? Of course, we always or often hear about multitasking. I find I'm very much a linear kind of person, which is more engineering and not a true linear straight line, but there's a process and a way of starting and stopping and moving on to the next. So I would say engineering, has informed that on a macro level. And then I was in the field. I was doing construction and dealing with the trades and every part, no matter what kind of law you're practicing or I could practice, having that information helps. As a professor, I'm constantly, and this is very construction like, I'm constantly sending students notes about what's going to happen next week. Then I send them a note, this is what just happened. Then I send them a note, this is why it matters. And then I send them a note, this is what's going to happen next week. Even if it's blended into the same email, and that's very much a construction-like way of thinking of the world. I'm very proud of my law degree, and I don't always know how it serves me, but I think one area is I'm rarely intimidated intellectually. I certainly come across problems that are significant, intellectual problems, and I think, well, I can think my way through this. I can ask my way through this. I can Google my way through this. I can figure it out. So I think law or the law school and practicing law is a certain amount of, this isn't biochemistry. We can figure this out.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. And pivoting now, I want to talk a little bit about the hotel and hospitality area
Sure.
where you now practice. So what exactly is hotel and hospitality law, and what does it look like in your experience?
Right. It's an area which is, for me, endlessly fascinating, is rich in characters, and is not quite able to be discussed or clarified quickly. There's just no one or two sentences that describe it. So I will start by describing it and then tell you why I like it and what we do with the program. So in the fundamental models of the hospitality industry now, or I guess all of us go into a Marriott hotel or a Hilton hotel and we think, gosh, it's great to be at this Marriott. Hilton, Marriott has sure done a nice job with this hotel, or pick the name of a hotel. The current model, and I can't use my hands or draw, of course, on a podcast, three major parties. Let's just use a Hilton Garden Inn. Hilton is the brand company. They have created the Hilton Garden Inn, the logo, the name, the feel. Hilton has the Hilton Honors, which is its customer loyalty program and members. And Hilton has the reservation systems. There are others, but those are the three principal, the name, the logo, and the loyalty, and then the reservation systems. Then there's the hotel owner, which is typically now a developer who buys land and builds a building that's going to be Hilton Garden Inn. Most of the time, the developers are not skilled in hotel operations. So they will then go to a third party, a hotel management company, who is actually the staff of the hotel that we walk into. So we have three parties: the franchisor, Hilton, the franchisee, hotel owner, and then a management agreement with the hotel management company. So if we stop right there, we've just introduced almost across the board on commercial and real estate topics in America and global, right? We're talking about land, real estate, so design, development, and construction of a building. We've talked about an engagement, a franchise engagement between Hilton and the owner. And then we've talked about a hotel management agreement, which can be long-term between the hotel owner and the hotel manager, which can be 5-year, 10-year, or 50-year agreement. In the hotel industry, there are agreements that are generational, which is also unusual. I will add one more area before I jump into the topics, and that is purchase and sale of hotels. which are purchase and sale of a business. So we take a deep, deep look at a lot of different topics in the hotel and hospitality and tourism law program. So when we say what is hotel law, I've kind of just rambled for a moment, but that's what hotel law is. Those parties to the guests, we're not that we're indifferent, we're just, we don't know. And yet here are all these parties. Who is this front desk person who is just greeted? Who employs that person? So those are the main topics and the core of what we do. And then, hospitality is any industry in America, and again, any industry globally. So data security and privacy. We've heard about credit card cases. We've heard about actual security with Aaron Andrews' case, privacy information for about the hotel guest, information about the hotel employees, a huge area across many topics. We talk about insurance and risk management. We have, if you think about a spa or a resort that has a spa, you're thinking about activities that can be dangerous, that can have broken legs or whatever, conference facilities where you're talking about lots of people. So we spend a lot of time on insurance, risk management. There's a huge area in employment law and labor law. So traditional employment topics of discriminations, harassment, hiring and firing. And we take a deep look at, in major cities in the US, we have labor and unions. In the towns you might imagine, Boston, New York, Providence, Chicago, San Francisco, huge topics in employment. We look at compliance and anti-corruption. There can be unscrupulous, as in any industry participants. The hotel owner that I mentioned who's building the Hilton Garden Inn is struggling to get a permit, a building permit. And the county permit person says, yeah, I've really been struggling with my boat. Don't know what to do about it. Wish I could find someone to help me. And all of a sudden we have a problem in compliance. And then there are more interesting intellectual and real issues in compliance. And that's in price fixing and price setting. Pick a smaller town, because we're in the DC area, Annapolis, that might have 15 or 16 hotels tops. What happens if those general managers start talking about, even innocently, about their pricing? Is that collusion? Is that antitrust? How do we prevent it? Those can have horrible impact, reputational, on the companies.
It sounds like hospitality law and hotel law in general encompasses a lot of risk in terms of labor, in terms of building permits and all that kind of stuff. What are some of the key issues that hospitality lawyers often navigate with their clients, whether it be hotels, restaurants, or any other area?
Sure. So again, if we say hotel lawyer, that can be the lawyer on franchising, that can be the lawyer on the hotel management agreement, and then sort of the day-to-day operations of a hotel. There can be any number of on-site issues. Restaurants have alcohol, those are going to be topics. Insurance plays a huge role. So some of the more common risks, someone slips, a valet has something happen with a vehicle, they're important but typically covered. It's really the bigger issues about managing a portfolio that are more concerned and probably more interesting. Also in the course, I didn't mention it, but we talk about hospitality agreements, and we always start with breaches of agreement. What are we talking about? What are we fighting for? How do these agreements fall apart? An agreement today that's going to be in place for 30 years, by nature, it's not possible to anticipate issues that come up 10 years from now, right? 15 years ago, the idea of having Wi-Fi would have asked how to spell it, first of all, and then where does it play and what happens if you get hacked, and data privacy and what if someone's pirating from across the street. It's just very difficult to anticipate all these issues. So a lot of the risk is the risk of the unknown.
I think it's really interesting that you raise this concept of things that you really can't anticipate. Obviously, in the last couple of years, we've had the coronavirus pandemic. I can't speak from experience, but I'm sure that the hotel industry has taken a hit from that. So, how has the pandemic affected hospitality law? And is it expected to fully bounce back soon, or what is the status now?
Yeah, that's a great question. More obviously a question of economics. Certainly questions of legal risk about guests who might contract COVID. What do you do about the employees, the vaccine mandates? It is by nature, and it's sometimes people laugh, but the hospitality industry is by nature optimistic. The industry in March and April of 2020 went from nearly full capacity to nearly empty. Stark. Last year being 2021 was fairly good. The industry continues to push ahead. The industry continues to build new hotels. I'll come back to your question, but I think one area that we often don't appreciate is the wear and tear of hotels, not just in bedding and in carpeting, but just how quickly a hotel can date and age. And you can sort of feel it as soon as you walk into a hotel. So there's constant pressure in the industry to, I don't know, evolve and stay fresh, whether it's a lobby refresh or whether it's bedding or, again, going back before Wi-Fi, going from tube TVs to flat screen TVs, right? As soon as you walk into a hotel, if you see a tube TV, you're going to think, oh my goodness, where am I? Unless it's some sort of kitschy country inn, and it's kind of a retro, but that's going to be rare. COVID has been profound, seemingly across the world. Major hotel companies are gearing up. This latest Omicron has been difficult, interrupted that climbing back from the big hole. But lenders are still out there, and Wall Street still favors the hotel companies, so it seems quite positive.
Are there any famous or interesting hospitality cases that you want to share with our listeners? Maybe that your students have found really interesting, or just you personally want to share?
Well, I was going to start out by saying that there are not many signature hotel law cases. I interrupted myself because there were, 10 years ago, a fascinating line of cases on hotel terminations, whether the owner can, in a sense, kick out the hotel manager. It's one of the few times in my career where I have seen courts routinely ignore the plain language of legal agreements. Legal agreements were drafted clearly, concisely, and absolutely, and yet court after court brought in common law notions of agency. I mean, they're kind of interesting academically, but not really all that pertinent now. The industry has finally said, okay, we give up. The judges keep saying these rulings and we're just going to have to abide by it, and we can't draft our way around it. But I find it kind of utterly unusual, maybe not ridiculous, but utterly unusual that courts would go to this length to ignore clearly drafted by parties of equal bargaining power, signed without duress, and yet courts have stepped in time and again. So those would be kind of interesting cases, but it's not the stuff of appellate litigation. There are quite a number of disputes, but usually factual and not relying on some Ninth Circuit opinion.
Well, that makes sense, especially as you were describing that hospitality law is really made up of a lot of different areas of law, sort of merged into one, just by virtue of the way that these things work. Well, before we wrap up, we want to ask, do you have any advice for students who might be interested in practicing hospitality law in the future? So, for example, classes they could take, experiential programs, organizations to join, or groups to reach out to?
Sure. And I think I'll answer the question, if you don't mind, backwards, which is, given my career as being somewhat non-traditional, starting out traditional, hotel law is also an area where lawyers can find really interesting careers that blend law and business. I know quite a number of successful industry executives who were lawyers and practiced law, and then just sort of evolved and morphed and wasn't as stark as my path, but they did also make leaps. And most who I've talked to have been profoundly rewarded by it, both intellectually, financially, and every other way. For the students, taking the hotel law program helps. There are hotel practice groups, hospitality practice groups in law firms. That's still very much a mentorship apprentice model. Again, it's a very open and friendly industry. I don't dare people, but if students can contact hotel law attorneys in-house or elsewhere and say, I'm curious, do you have time to answer some questions? And invariably the answer is going to be either yes, absolutely, or I'm busy right now, but in 2 weeks, can you circle back with me? There aren't really, except for our program, I've never seen a unified program that looks at these. Some schools will have franchising courses, a lot of schools will have real estate, but no one that I've seen takes a full look at it and goes about, from start to finish, a way of looking at these topics. So it's like a lot of different areas. It's going to be some formal education and the rest trying to pick it up. There are conferences you can go to. Los Angeles at the end of January is a nice place to be. There's a conference. And then New York City in the week after Memorial Day, there's a decent one, not on point, but at least a way to get started.
Well, that's a good plug if there's any 0Ls out there to apply to American University if you're interested in tourism and hospitality law. Thank you so much for your time, Professor Shapiro, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. We hope you learned something new and interesting today. I know I definitely did, and we want you to tune in next time for our next episode of Let's Brief It.
The DC Bar law student community strives to engage and support law students before you graduate and expose you to the tangible benefits of joining the DC Bar and DC Bar communities. Curated programming allows law students to participate in substantive content programming, leadership trainings, networking with practicing attorneys in fields of interest, writing opportunities, and other activities designed to expand your legal education beyond the classroom. Make an investment in your legal career by joining the law student community. To learn more, visit us at www.dcbar.org or email communities@dcbar.org. We look forward to hearing from you.